Greetings, everyone. I welcome you all for Daily News Simplified, the how, what, and why of newspaper reading. Today, we are going to discuss the Hindu dated 25th of July 2018 daily edition. Page number 10 of today's newspaper presents a very important article which talks about Lok Sabha passes anti-graft amendment bill. Now this bill is very important because it brings a lot of changes to Prevention of Corruption Act. Now, as far as these changes are concerned, these changes have been passed by Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha has to pass it. Afterwards, once it gets the president's approval, it will become an act. Now, as far as this topic is concerned, this topic will fall under the category of General Studies Paper 2 through Governance, Constitution and Polity, and it can also fall under General Studies Paper 4, in which it will be part of Probity in Governance. So this is something which is very important for mains perspective, and you should pay attention to the provisions of this bill. Now, as far as this bill is concerned, this bill brings a lot of clarity in terms of what is bribery, who is the bribery giver and taker. Second important is pre-investigation approval. Third is sanction for prosecution, and fourth is criminal misconduct. Apart from this, it also talks about forfeiture of the property which is acquired through illegal means. Let's begin our analysis. Now let us try to understand the important point of this article. First and foremost, it seeks to punish the bribe givers and bribe takers. Now, the differentiating factor that we can see from the Prevention of Corruption Act, that these two categories are treated separately, and there is a further distinction in terms of collusive bribe giver and coerced bribe giver, which is talked about in point 4. Second important aspect is the jail term of 3 to 7 years besides fine. Now this provision is for public servants. Now public servants have to go for a punishment of 3 to 7 years. Now this is a departure from the Prevention of Corruption Act 1988, because earlier the jail term was from 1 to 7 years. So this is a distinction, this is a difference. This is actually will also ensure that anyone who is convicted in the bribery case will not be or shall not be represented in the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha or legislative assemblies. Third is it extends the ambit of public servant for prosecution and investigation. Now earlier, because of some protection given the Constitution under Article 311, Joint Secretary and above level officer or Joint Secretary and above level officer, you have to acquire approval, prior approval for investigation as well as for prosecution. But now this ambit will include all public servants. So this is something which has diluted the basic idea of anti-graft bill, which has been debated heavily in the parliament. Now, last but not the least is collusive bribe givers versus coerced bribe givers. I will just try to explain one thing to you. Now, suppose there is a contractor. Now, this contractor is in collusion with a public servant, and both this contractor is paying bribe to the public servant to get benefits. Now, the benefits, if I talk about, benefits are shared by both the contractor as well as the public servant. Now, there can be a second case in which you are, say, someone who is a house owner and you are going to the electricity department to get an electricity connection. Now, in order to grant you connection, there is someone in the electricity department who is demanding money to get the work done. And now in this case, you will become a coerced bribe giver. It is not a collusive bribe giver. So this is a distinction that this bill ratifies in terms of the bribe givers and how and why there are some who are coerced bribe givers. They are not willful defaulters or willful bribe givers. Now let us try to understand what changes this anti-graft bill brings in terms of difference between the earlier act, that is Prevention of Corruption Act of 1988. First and foremost is definitely the definition of bribe. Apart from that, there is a definition of bribe giver as well, and giving bribe is an offense which is declared by this bill. Earlier, there was no definition in terms of giving bribe. It was actually abetment. Abetment means to assist someone in crime. Giving bribe is made an offense. It is actually differentiated as well. First is the collusive, and second is the coerced. And someone who is coerced to give bribe is basically expected to report the same matter within 7 days to evade any kind of problem or action under the law. Third important aspect is that we know that the ambit of public servant has been increased drastically. Apart from that, sanctions would be required for prosecuting former official as well for the offences done in the office. This again will be a point of discussion for our member of parliament in the house, that this is a provision which will dilute the strength of the anti-graft bill. Fourth important aspect is only two types of criminal misconducts are specified. First and foremost is the misappropriation of property entrusted to a public servant. It means that whatever resources that are given to public servant, if that misappropriation is done, means they're not spent wisely or efficiently, then there's a misappropriation of property. And second is intentionally enriching oneself illicitly, means illegally. So that is an important aspect of defining misconduct. Once we have defined the misconduct in terms of these two provisions, things become easy to define in terms of running a case or filing a case against someone. Last but not the least is special court to attach and confiscate properties. Now, in the previous act, the Prevention of Corruption Act, if I talk about the property that has been created by someone who is deeply entrenched into the bribery and corruption, you have to file a separate case for the entire thing. Now, in this anti-graft amendment bill of 2018, now this there is a special court, and they will try to finish every proceeding within a specified period of time, and they will do simultaneous confiscation of the property which is acquired through illegal means. So in this way, this act is very different from the Prevention of Corruption Act of 1988. It brings a lot of changes, but many of these changes will have to stand the test of the time in terms of passing from the Rajya Sabha, and there will be changes as well. Why there will be changes? Because some of the demands of the opposition are very valid in terms of the time of 7 days that is given to the people to declare any kind of case in terms of bribery, so as to protect them under the coercive bribe giver. So this is something which will happen, and further updates will be done in this article. Page number 8 of today's newspaper presents a wonderful editorial about cosmetic repair. Now, this article is related to Inter-Creditor Agreement, which was signed on Monday, and the article does a wonderful analysis about what kind of a challenges this agreement may face in the time to come. This article wonderfully explains the kind of challenges this agreement may face, because this is more of a cosmetic in nature. Cosmetic is something which is superficial in nature. Now, as far as this article is concerned, this will come under General Studies paper 3, and it will be covered under economic development, and the subsection would be banking. So let's begin the analysis. Now let us understand the need of this inter-creditor agreement. Now, as far as the resolution of stressed loans is concerned, it has been a continuous challenge for the lenders in India. And the reason for this is very simple, that is disagreement between the joint lenders. Why this is so? Suppose there is a group of lenders who identify that they are having a bad loan or a stressed loan that they need to do away with, but they have to get a consensus opinion of all the lenders who are participant in that loan to sell it. Now this is something which is problem, because not all of them would agree to this point straight away, and hence what will happen, objection of a few lenders will prevent a settlement. So there will be a trouble in selling the stressed loan. Now, keeping this thing in mind, the inter-creditor agreement was brought into picture under the Shashakt plan. Now, once this inter-creditor agreement is signed by a group of banks, which actually includes the public sector banks, the private sectors banks, and the private sector banks and the foreign banks, now this becomes an easy task to sell the troubled asset. How? A majority representing two-thirds of the loans within the consortium should be sufficient to override any objection. Now there are joint lenders, so if two-thirds of the majority of the joint lenders are willing to sell the loan, then the objection of minority will not be taken into consideration, and this will ensure easy selling of stressed loan or faster selling of the stressed loan. Now, once we do this, what will happen? Minority lenders can either feel cheated that they are not getting the right value in terms of the investment they have made. So, what they can do, they can either sell their troubled assets to someone at a discount or buy the same from the other banks at a premium, so that they should not feel so that they do not feel short charged. The majority representing two-thirds of the loan within the consortium should be sufficient to override any objection. Now, this appears to be a wonderful system for the entire banking industry, but this is cosmetic in nature. Why this is cosmetic? Just try to understand. Now, time-bound resolution can have unintended consequences. First and foremost is the quick fire sale, where you sell your assets faster because of the approaching timeline. So this is something which is not a very advisable thing to any lender. Second, work against the interest of the lenders. When lenders invest their money into something, they want to extract maximum out of it. And in order to extract maximum, they should invest time. But time bound resolution will take away this opportunity from them, and hence there will be problem number B, that it goes against the interest of the lenders. Third, that is actually very important. There is an actual absence of buyers of the stressed loan in the market. So even if you want to sell it, there will be very less buyers available to buy those. And if they're willing to buy, they will be asking for a very deep discount, which banks will be unwilling to accept. Now, these will be the problems. That is why the author of this article has called this measure a cosmetic one. I hope this is clear to all of you. Now, the page number one of today's newspaper covers a wonderful article which talks about Supreme Court pulls up center for its delay in appointing a Lokpal. Now, you must understand that this is more of an interim news, so there are few important things that we can pick from the news, but we will wait for the news to mature in terms of the complete story. Now, as far as this news is concerned, this can be the part of General Studies paper 2, and it will come under governance, constitution, and polity. Now, there are few very important aspects of mains examination which are related to this particular topic, for which we are going to talk about in the end of this slide. First and foremost, let's talk about why this is in news now. Lokpal and Lokayukt Act of 2013. This was passed in 2013. It has not been implemented and Lokpal has not been appointed. Now, the Supreme Court of India asked the government to come up with an affidavit which can actually tell the exact timeline for setting up the institution of Lokpal. But Mr. K.K. Venugopal, who is the Attorney General of India, represented the government of India and said that the process of setting up or establishing the Lokpal is a very complicated one, and right now it is not possible to give an exact timeline. Now, the reason for this is very simple to understand, that when Lokpal and Lokayukt Act of 2013, if we talk about that, so the selection committee should include Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition, Chief Justice of India, an eminent jurist, and the Speaker of Lok Sabha. Now, you must be aware that there is no Leader of Opposition in the current Lok Sabha. So that is why this process has not been completed. So the current Lok Sabha does not have a Leader of Opposition, and therefore the Lokpal has not been appointed. However, Supreme Court in its judgment on April 2017 has clarified that appointment of the Lokpal should not be stalled due to absence of leader of opposition. So the Supreme Court is very clear that we should get the institution of Lokpal as early as possible, but somehow the government does not seem to budge. And based on this, the Supreme Court has pulled up the center. Now, it must be highlighted that Supreme Court is hearing a contempt petition which was filed by Mr. Prashant Bhushan, and Prashant Bhushan was of opinion that the government is not sincere in its effort for the appointment of Lokpal, and hence court should take a stand and start the process for the selection of candidates for the office of Lokpal. Court has expressed the opinion that the government should take appropriate action for the appointment of the Lokpal. Now, before we move further, just try to understand the journey of Lokpal in India. The idea of the ombudsman is not new in India. Lokpal is called as ombudsman. Ombudsman is known in a lot of Scandinavian countries. So this is how the name has been derived. So the idea of ombudsman came in 1963 for the first time during a parliamentary discussion on the budget for the allocation of money for the law ministry. So this is for the first time when the ombudsman, idea of ombudsman came into picture. In 1966, the first Administrative Reform Commission recommended two bodies, one at the center and other the state. This was basically done to ensure that the federal structure of the country is strengthened. So one will be at center, that will be Lokpal, and for Lokayukt would be working at the state. In 1968, Lokpal Bill was introduced for the first time in the parliament, but it was not passed. And from 1968 to 2011, there were 8 attempts to pass the bill, but we could not get our Lokpal. The Constitution Review Commission, headed by M.N. Venkatchalaya, recommended appointment of the Lokpal and Lokayuks. It also recommended that the Prime Minister be kept out of the Lokpal's ambit. In 2005, Second Administrative Reform Commission, this also recommended about the establishment of Lokpal, but this again was not carried forward. In 2013, Lokpal Act 1 was passed in the parliament, and from 2014 onwards till this date, 2018, we haven't found our Lokpal, or we were not in a position to establish our Lokpal. So this is the problem which Supreme Court feels that we are not doing enough, and this shows lack of political will at the government's end, that even if they have the right act in place, they are not willing to get the institution of Lokpal. Now, as far as this question about Lokpal is concerned, in 2013, so this is a question of 2013, which was of 200 words. So this was there, and a national Lokpal, however strong it may be, cannot resolve the problem of immorality in public affairs discussed. So Lokpal has been a favorite topic, and if I talk about ombudsman or Lokpal, this question has also been asked in the prelims examination. So this is something which is very important. We'll also highlight once again that this story is actually developing into a major one. So that is why this is a more of an interim story. We will wait for this story to mature and we'll cover it in detail. Page number 8 of today's newspaper presents a wonderful article which talks about India needs smart urbanization. Now, this topic is a part of GS paper 1, which comes under society, and it talks about a very important topic. The subtopic would be urbanization. Now, considering the weight given to smart city and urbanization problems in India, this topic holds special value. Let's begin. First, let's begin with the main points of the article. The interesting aspect or interesting observation about trends of urban population growth draws our attention to one of the major problems. First and foremost, in 2018, the percentage of urban population is close to 34%. In 2011 census, it was roughly around 31%. So there is an increment of 3% from 2011 to 2018. However, the cluster cities which are in excess of 50 lakh population, the number of these cities or the strength of these cities has remained more or less the same. However, the number of cities which had the population of 10 to 50 lakh, the number of these cities has gone up from 34 to 50. Now, this is an interesting trend. It means people want to move towards intermediate centers. So this trend of urban population growth is very interesting to know. Now, author also highlights the reason for that. The reasons are very simple. First is lack of infrastructure. Second is the pollution that has been witnessed in the urban areas. The author cites the case of people from Haryana going back to their villages during the winters because they cannot handle the toxic air of Delhi. Now let us focus about the problem in urban areas. Now the first and foremost is the lack of the basic amenities. Now as far as the basic amenities is concerned, first thing would be clean air. This is something which is a luxury these days. Second point, if we can talk about, is drinking water, drinking or potable water. So this is again a very difficult thing to get in urban areas. And third is sanitation. Although there has been a lot of emphasis on Swachh Bharat, but sanitation in urban areas still is a great problem. Now, as far as other problems are concerned, other problems would include lack of housing. Second would be disease epidemic. Urban areas have witnessed a lot of diseases, especially if you talk about Delhi. Dengue has been a regular feature here. And third would be flood in the urban areas like Delhi and Bombay, which cause a lot of problem, especially if we talk about Bangalore. So we can see that there has been. Author also highlights that the government has identified smart cities, 90 smart cities, and these 90 smart cities, 148 projects have been initiated, and out of these projects, only 70% are only on the starting phase. Now, this is something which is very troublesome because it means that even if we identify the smart cities, we are not doing enough for the urban growth and development of the country. So, this problem should also be handled by the government. Now, there are three problems which author identifies about the urban areas in India, especially in terms of notifying. Now, first and foremost, the author identifies that the definition of urban area is very vague. And as far as urban area definition is concerned, state governments have an upper hand. So since this is with the state government, they come up with a very liberal format. The format is very simple. The population of 5,000 plus, 75% of male working in non-agricultural activities. So this is the second criteria. Third criteria is the population density of the place is 400% per square kilometer. So these are the definition segment, but this definition does not do any kind of justice in terms of identifying the urban areas. Second important aspect which author highlights is the lack of investment in the infrastructure, and author put forwards a very interesting figure that government in India on an average spends $17 per person in the urban infrastructure. The international standard or international average, I should not say standard, international average is $100 per person. And for China, this is $116 per person. So you can see that the lack of investment in the infrastructure. So this is a problem that author has identified. Last, third problem that the author has identified is the dearth of skilled labor in urban areas. And since we do not have good labor in urban areas, these urban areas lack the kind of development that we expect from smart urbanization for India. Author ends the article by praising the new government policy of rebuilding urban areas, keeping humans at the center place, instead of considering urban areas as just agglomerates. At the same time, author suggests that we should actually use land use norms. We should have correct delineation of land use norms, which will actually stop haphazard urbanization. Second important aspect that the author focuses is more financial power to the local bodies so that they can invest in the infrastructure. And last but not the least is the integrating of migrants. This can be done in two ways. First is reducing the cost of migration, and second is intermingling or end of discrimination with migrants. Now let us see how important this topic is for UPSC mains examination. There have been quite a number of questions in the previous years, so I have taken just two of them. In 2013, there has been a question on discuss the various social problems which originated out of speedy process of urbanization in India. This was of 10 marks of 200 words. Similarly, there was a question in 2011. This was actually part of a bigger section. So this is question number 5, part C, the significance of counter urbanization in the improvement of metropolitan cities in India. And this was actually of 12 marks and 150 words. Now this is different. The examination pattern was different in 2011. So that is why the number of marks and words are different from what we see in current context. Based on this article, I would suggest a question for you which you can answer in your words through the information given in this article. So you should try to answer this question. India's urbanization has been a result of trial and error. Suggest ways and methods to improve urban planning in India. So you can utilize the information given in the article, and based on that, you should answer this question. Keep it in mind that you should answer this question in 250 words, and you can judge yourself on the basis of points given in the article. Page number 7 of today's Hindu presents an article which talks about Raghuram Rajan, former RBI chief's idea about how India can have a better educational infrastructure. Now, this particular topic will come under GS paper 2 and it will be part of social justice. Let's begin the analysis. Now, the first and foremost, the article has been written with the objective, or the talk has been organized with an objective, that India currently does not have even a single university which is ranked in top 100 in the world. And this actually talks about the sorry state of affairs, especially for education in India. Now, Raghuram Rajan provides several steps that can be required to ensure an Indian university in top 100. So as far as the first step is concerned, he focuses more on tolerance and diversity. So India provides an environment of tolerance and diversity that allows free exchange of different ideas and allows dissent upon contemporary issues, which is necessary to create educational environment. So this is one of the first thing. So India should be more tolerant and diversity driven. Second important aspect is the credible certification framework. Now, government has formed a current certification framework, that is National Institutional Ranking Framework, and is undertaking reform of current educational accreditation bodies such as UGC, AICTE, Medical Council of India, among others. So we need to have a credible certification framework which can actually enhance the quality of education that is given to people here. Third is continuing education system and provision of micro degrees. That is very important. And Raghuram Rajanji provides an example of National University of Singapore, which allows students to continuously return to take courses over a period of 20 years. Apart from this, micro degrees need to be encouraged that allow individuals to achieve academic recognition for a specific specialization. So these are few of the steps. Let's move further. Now, as far as the step 4 is concerned, that is combining technology, that has been the mainstay for education. So, technology and manpower, both. Now, an example would be using modern technology to skill India under the Skill India program, which Raghuram Rajanji used. And last but not the least is tapping the diaspora talent. Now, International Academia has huge talent from Indian diaspora, apart from in business R&D and other fields which can be tapped in Indian academia in various capacities. Now, this was done earlier as well. You might be aware that Homi J. Bhabha was working in the US before he was called by Nehruji. So that is what the idea is. We should tap the diaspora talent. People of Indian origin have done very well in the field of education in American and European universities, and they can be tapped for this purpose. Now, if I talk about UPSC, a similar question has been asked in UPSC, and it was asked in the year 2015. The quality of higher education in India requires major improvement to make it internationally competitive. Do you think that entry of foreign educational institution would help improve the quality of higher and technical education in the country? Discuss. Now we have devised a similar type of question which you can answer through the information given the question. First is the quality of higher education in India requires major improvements to make it internationally competitive. Highlight various steps that can be undertaken to make Indian education institutions globally competitive. So if you want to write this answer in 150 words or 250 words, you can easily write by taking inspiration from the ideas of Raghuram Rajanji, and this will give you a holistic picture of how to improve the quality of education in India, and apart from that, how to get Indian education institutions in the top 100. Yes, we have come to the end of today's session. Let's move to the question of the day.